This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. Okay, the sort of thing that would interest me, I think, if I was looking at any of these guitars is how they compare to one another, which is not necessarily what every sort of YouTube demo of these sort of things will be, but this is the idea of this video. So this is the PRS CE24 Satin. I bought this one from Peach Guitars. This is the Fender Standard, you know, the new Indonesian Strat, and I think I bought this from, or maybe Anderton's. Peach actually open every single box. There is that to bear in mind, whereas Anderton's and most of the other guitar shops in the UK don't do that. But if there was glaring mistakes or glaring errors, then Peach would generally tidy those up. A good reason to buy from Peach Guitars. Anyway, let's hear the guitars. The reason that I'm kind of comparing these two is that they're within a similar sort of price bracket. This is £500 at the moment, and these are about 430, 450. I've got this one coil split for this video, by the way, just because obviously these are single coils, and this has a coil split. First of all, things that are good about both guitars. Actually, the frets on these guitars for this price are very well polished, and some of the guitars that I've tried in this price range, like the Ibanez AZ Standard, Sire guitars, some of the Jet guitars, don't normally come with frets that are as smooth as this. So that's a real point in both courts. So Fender on this particular guitar and PRS on this particular guitar have done a really good job, and it does make it fun to play the guitars right out of the box. And yeah, you'll probably not really be able to appreciate that, but there is a difference, and you can definitely feel it under your fingers when you've got like a slightly less polished fret out of the factory. Other things going on, this is a mahogany body, but you can see like it's lots of different pieces. I think this is partly the way that they are able to keep these guitars very lightweight. Like, this is a very light guitar, especially when you consider that it's mahogany. And I'm going to keep saying it's mahogany. I better check that it is mahogany, but I think it's mahogany. Now I'm going to stop saying mahogany. It's a 24 fret guitar, which would not be my first choice because it does put the neck humbucker in a slightly less advantageous position, in my opinion. Whereas on the Strat type guitars, or 21 and 22, it sits a bit closer to that 24th fret. Whereas obviously the pickup here is now beyond that harmonic. So I think that can make a difference tonally, right? Who's Tony? Anyway, right, so other things going on. I think the PRS neck is slightly thicker. The radius, I think, is slightly flatter. Both necks feel fairly comfortable, no sharp fret edges or anything like that. Fender Standard neck is a little on the skinny side for my liking. And I think if I compared to this to some of my other guitars, it would still be quite skinny, but at least it's not quite as skinny as this. Neither of them have locking tuners. Both have, you know, slightly cheaper tuners on there. The tuning stability of the Fender Standard, I'd say, was a little bit above the CE, in my experience. One thing that this sort of has going against it in that regard is the floating trem. But this is set up floating as well. But in theory, you could set this one up to be decked, and then you'd have a bit of a more stable guitar, I would think. In terms of pickups, let me know your thoughts, which you preferred, or if you had a preference. These are ceramic pickups, and so actually they kind of do compare quite well with these in terms of both being fairly high output. And yeah, so let's just do a little bit of playing. This is a heavier guitar, poplar body and a laurel fretboard. I think this is a real rosewood fretboard. I'll check the specs on that. But as I said, mahogany body, lightweight, very tidy inlay work on both, but obviously I think the PRS is slightly more complicated to do, whether you like the birds or not. And in terms of versatility, I guess it's a bit of a wash as well, because this has got humbuckers, which for, you know, recording at home would be useful, for playing different styles of music would be useful. You've also got the coil split, which I find works quite well on these guitars, whereas this has no humbucking option, but you do have the in-between positions, which obviously this is missing with a 3. So plugging in. So this guitar does in fact have one extra sound, which the Strat has 5 sounds. I personally am not particularly a chap who uses humbuckers that much. So these in-between positions are only going to be available on the Strat versus that. But the other thing is that I think the neck position is going to be a bit sweeter and a bit more fluty, no matter what the pickups are, because of the pickup position. I prefer the feel of the Fender Strat, personally. So I think that would be the guitar of choice for me. If you're playing sort of heavier styles of music, maybe with the 24th fret, this might suit better. And I think the Fender in my hands feels a bit more lively, a bit more sparkle, a bit more vibrant. That's kind of my feeling on it, such as it is. Choices that you can make around the £500 price mark. I think between both of these guitars, I would actually go with the Ibanez AZ Standard over both of them, personally, having played both of those. So I'll probably do that in a different video. I've already compared the Fender Strat to the Ibanez AZ. Maybe I'll compare this one to it. Both good feeling guitars. I think this one feels a bit cheaper to play in my hands than the Fender Strat, which does seem, for some reason, to have a bit more kind of brightness, a bit more spank, and feels a bit more alive in the hands. You know, whether that helps you make a decision or not, hopefully you get something out of this video in terms of having some idea about what these two, maybe they're not the most obvious comparison to make. Also, I think if you're considering PRS, a Silver Sky SE, I would choose over this guitar. Equally, if you've got a little bit more extra money to spend, the Mexican Player 2, I think, again, would totally outperform both of these guitars. Yeah, if you could stretch to a PRS DGT SE, I think that outperforms this guitar too. You know, relative to how much you spend on these things, you do start to get quite a lot more for your money, even though it's not necessarily tons more. Yeah, pickup position on this Strat I prefer massively to the PRS position too, so that does make a difference for me. This is the lighter guitar, but I think I prefer this one slightly, if you care about my verdict.